Hi, this is Simon.
And this is Velma.
And today we want to try something just a little bit different. I want to try an unscripted video with you, asking you some questions about your experiences so far with Dark Souls.
Asking me some questions.
Yes.
Yes.
In particular with reference to difficulty and your experiences so far with the difficulty of Dark Souls, okay?
Okay.
Just to be clear, so far you've only played the game 3 times.
Right?
Yeah,
three times. Yeah.
And you've only fought through the first 2 areas, so you defeated Gundyr and Vort. So you really haven't played very much of Dark Souls at all.
Vort of the Boreal Valley.
You really haven't played very much of Dark Souls at all.
True.
You're still very much in the beginning of your journey. You haven't played any of the other games either, which I think is actually why I want to try this now.
Okay.
And then, who knows, in a few months, maybe we could revisit this idea and see whether your views have changed and whether you do hit a wall at some point and find that the difficulty does ramp up. But for now, I just want to find out this first maybe 5 hours that you've played, exactly how that experience has been for you.
Okay.
So before we talk about your experiences, before you ever played any of these, I think you watched me, at least in the background, you saw me play, I think, Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne, and Elden Ring. I don't think you watched...
Bits of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never sat there watching me play, I don't think, but you had enough...
There were several times when I would sit and watch you play. Like if you... Because there've been lots of times when you've been stuck on a boss.
Well, that was what I was going to ask. I was going to ask, like, what were your experiences of watching me, like,
well,
particularly with regards to difficulty?
The main things I remember were you getting really, really stuck on, like, one particular boss, maybe. And
do you remember which bosses?
Ooh, I'm not sure. Well, I mean, the bosses that stand out to me are the 2.
Ornstein and Smo and Dark Souls
those
1,
knights.
for sure. Mm-hmm.
You probably did take a while to face them.
I definitely got stuck on those for a while.
And I remember you would probably play through, and you would do your boss run, and you'd go to them and you'd play through, but you would probably only attempt it like a handful of times each play session, and then you'd take a break and then come back to it maybe later, another time, another day. Mm-hmm. But those are the main things that stand out to me. Are you trying over and over and over again to get a boss, and then you finally beating it, and that moment of accomplishment.
So did that give you? So what was your idea of Dark Souls or the FromSoft games as a?
Well, that made me think that I could never play the games. Mm-hmm. They seemed very
inaccessible,
untouchable to me.
Yeah, I think for the longest time it was always more of a joke that you should play these sometime, and
I was always like, ha ha ha. Yeah,
which is kind of my next point that I wanted to talk about, because for the longest time it was always just a joke. You never were going to play these games. Yeah. There was no reason you ever would until I don't quite remember why
we
it suddenly
just decided to do it.
Joke, but we were like, okay, we'll try.
One day I was drunk enough. I don't know.
Do you remember how you felt knowing that this is real now? Were you really getting ready to make up that day that you were gonna start playing?
Actually, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. I think Pokemon, Arceus,
yeah.
That's probably one of the more difficult games that I've ever played.
And that was
a lot of people watching this will probably think that's a joke, but it's not. I feel in terms of Pokemon games or other games that I play, that's the most difficult game I've played. When it comes to the boss fights, what were the big Pokemon called?
I forget what they were called.
The Lord Pokemon or whatever.
Yeah, frenzy Pokemon. There was a couple of those. Well, the Arcanine one took me forever to beat. But then I finally did, and I was well, maybe I can play more difficult games. Yeah, I mean, it was still definitely a jump up because...
That probably sounds so silly, me saying, well, Pokemon made me confident.
I mean...
but it did.
I mean, those fights did involve, dodging and those kind of mechanics that you need for Dark Souls, so, Yeah, I can see at least.
But then when it did come time for me to actually play, I was quite nervous. And I did not at all think... Well, I mean, for those of you that have watched our channel, I beat Gundyr on my first try, which I do think I got lucky.
I think...
Going back, because I've gone back and watched it, so have you, several times.
So
I think I got lucky.
For people who maybe don't know Dark Souls, but maybe are here for other reasons, normally in that fight, at about 50% of the boss, it transforms into that big black handy type thing that actually transformed about maybe 20% left. It transformed really late.
He was I was 3/4 of the way off of his damage before he transformed.
A lot of Dark Souls bosses will have a second, or very occasionally even a third phase, where they'll transform into something else and usually get more powerful, with a few exceptions.
And I don't know why he didn't transform as soon.
So I mean, you got lucky, but it was within the game, and that's just how you're whether that you would have died, who knows? But
the same thing in the second area. I feel like I just got lucky with that winged knight, with the big guy. Like,
I mean, that was.
I feel like if I were to go back and face him again, I probably would not be able to kill him on my first attempt.
But you would know differently. Like, there's a kind of like an alley there that you get kind of stuck in.
I had zero life back after that. Like, how did I survive that?
Because you had life. You probably had like
the tiniest sliver of life.
HP, like a single health point. But
HP.
It doesn't even sound normal.
Health point.
So yeah, I guess moving on, that was the next sort of point, that like, now that you have played it for maybe, let's say, 5 hours, what has been difficult? What has been easy? What hasn't been how you expected? What's been your overall experience so far with Dark Souls?
I think the most difficult thing, because I have only played like 3 game sessions.
Yeah.
And those 3 game sessions have been quite spread out.
Mm-hmm.
At least a week, most likely like 2 weeks in between each game session.
I would say more than that.
Like a month.
I feel like probably a month between each session. The first one we recorded in summer.
Yeah.
And it's now like
December each time
1st.
we've played, I've had to really refresh the controls, first of all, like movements.
Yeah, but that only takes you
Every time I play, I make mistakes, and I accidentally drink a health potion. I accidentally unequip my shield, and I have to refresh. And so I think that's one of the most difficult things for me, but that's just because I'm not playing it that often.
Yeah, that's how you're playing.
Obviously some of the bosses, well, I've only faced 2 of the bosses, but I think the difficulty for me is just that, is like being able to, like, I know what I need to do in order to maybe beat a bad guy, but will my hands actually be like, will my brain send that signal down to my hand and be able to like use the control, the buttons properly on the controller? That's the main thing I struggle with.
Can you like maintain calm and not panic and like roll when you shouldn't? Can you like maintain that kind of like fluid?
I think I'm struggling with that.
I think you're doing pretty well overall.
I
didn't even mean you. I just meant like can one maintain calm when you're faced with that giant boss and not just like be frantically trying to roll out the way?
I mean, if you watch our videos, you'll see my face, and I'm rather concentrated and focused. I feel like to a certain extent, we thought all my reactions would be funny, and they probably are. But I feel like a lot of the time I'm not reacting,
I think
which
for the bosses,
in reverse is even funny.
I think we've been surprised at how little you react during the boss fights, because you are so into it,
staring at the screen,
like genuinely. Okay.
But I think even if I am like maybe not reacting with my face, I'm still like freaking out inside. I'm probably pressing buttons I'm not meaning to press.
I mean, like, I think overall, I guess, Gundyr was kind of difficult to analyze because you did it first try and there was nothing to compare. I think before it's a bit more of like a normal situation. You did it 5 times, I think.
5 times, yeah.
And each time you were getting better. I think every single time you actually just got better every single time until you got him. And I think you deserved your victory in the end. There wasn't, it was a deserved victory. To take things a little bit differently, I don't know how well you're aware of the fact that within the gaming community, there is this kind of ongoing debate about difficulty in video games with regards to accessibility. Not just Dark Souls, of course, but Dark Souls is very much kind of a center point of a lot of the debate about whether games, and for example, whether Dark Souls 3 should come with an easy mode. So of course on the options when you start it, there's nothing to choose. You just start the game and it plays, and there's no selection of anything like that.
Easy, normal.
Which you get in lots of other games. You'll get that selection,
like in Yoshi or in
whatever games. Like that's a thing that used to be more common, but especially in a game like Dark Souls, none of the Dark Souls games, at least in the traditional sense, which we can talk about in a minute, have that in them. Is that anything you were like aware of that being a thing, or like?
I feel like I've heard you talk, not you talk about it, but I feel like I've listened to videos that you've watched that have talked about that, maybe.
Could you imagine like either side of the argument, like why people might be for or against having easy modes within video games?
Yeah, I could see both sides.
What would you think would be some of the arguments on either side?
Well, I think that's what a lot of people who think it should be difficult probably think that's just how it is. And it's difficult for that reason of like you having to face one boss over and over and over again countless times to build up that, like building up to the moment that you finally do beat it. And that sense of accomplishment is such a feeling of like success that you wouldn't have been able to get if it was easier to get.
Yeah, that's
But then I can also see on the other side of it, people who, like, from all sorts of accessibility and all sorts of abilities, this game really isn't for everybody.
Yeah, 100%.
So to make it more accessible, just generally. But I mean, even not even just the simplicity of it though. Like, in terms of, like, if we're talking about actual accessibility,
which is part of it.
I think this game really isn't for everybody.
Yeah, which just then when you said that, I said 100%.
That's probably why it's controversial.
Well, that's part of it. So part of it, from the accessibility point, it can mean anything, whether or not you're not good at games or whether you maybe physically can't play games in the way that other people can.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, part of the debates. But keeping it on the side of just people who maybe don't have the greatest skill.
Like me.
Well, I mean that's kind of part of it, that you wouldn't think you would be good at this game or be able to play this game at all. I think, again, focusing on Dark Souls, the games are critically acclaimed. They're some of the best games reviewed. Elden Ring just won the Game of the Year this year. Dark Souls, I think, has been granted the best game of all time and whatever.
Of all time?
There was a thing recently that crowned it as the best video. Dark Souls 1 is the best game. But I mean, but certainly, like, the world itself, the design, the lore behind it are all amazing. And I think some people would say that it's unfortunate some people cannot experience that.
I can see that.
Whether that's because of a difficulty curve, or whether because of their skill, or again some kind of physical impairment that prevents them from playing. On the other side, again, I said 100%, but in actuality, the games can be more accessible than I think people give them credit for. And I think you would be an example of that you didn't think you'd be able to play these games at all, but with a little bit of practice, like, you've been able to clear those first two areas.
I mean, and we're not the only channel that does this, of like somebody who maybe isn't as experienced of a gamer playing these quote unquote impossibly difficult games.
So I think part of it, that one of the arguments against the inclusion of these so-called easy modes is people will say there are easy modes in these games, you just need to know how to look for them. There's ways you can make things easier. A lot of people consider spells or pyromancy in these games to be much easier than sword fighting. And particularly in Elden Ring had lots of other kind of things that people can use, and different weapons that have been some people consider using those weapons or these certain like arts and things, and you can kind of get these sort of like spirit ghosts to help you out in Elden Ring, which maybe we'll play at some point. Some like people within the community think that's almost like cheating, using these things built in the game because it makes the game easier. So certainly in these more recent games there are ways to make it easier built in. It's not a case of choosing easy when you start it, but knowing that you can find these things to make it easier for yourself does allow.
But those things, those methods of like making things easier in the game, those aren't published by like the game, like by the actual company who produces the game.
Yeah, it's not like you can do this to make it easy, but with a bit of research, you could figure out, okay, like this weapon is a really good weapon you can find early on, or using this starting class is easier than the other starting classes, or finding this weapon and upgrading this.
Yeah, but that's never in the game though.
No, yeah, and certainly like I think one thing I would say you find not difficult but maybe confusing is that all the stats and things like that. So without
all
knowing
those
like
numbers,
that kind of thing, I think
that to me is inaccessible.
Yeah, and I beyond maybe not difficult, but it is a little inaccessible.
Yeah.
I think one of the other,
especially because in the gameplay, if I didn't have you, there's like, I don't remember there being any type of explanation for how any of those numbers work.
I mean, like on that point, because I do sit there playing it next, like watching you play.
So you're sitting there helping me and like explaining them as I go.
But I think to be clear on that, as to how much it helped you, I tend to give you a focus in a direction.
Yeah.
But mostly because of time more than anything else.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because it takes you a few hours to get into drag, and we only have maybe at most 2 hours to record, and I feel like if I wasn't being like, you need to go this way or this way,
forever.
We would just take a long time and we wouldn't be getting footage out.
We wouldn't have even gotten to Vort yet.
So yeah, I think so other than that, I've never taken the control and I've never done anything for you when we've been playing those games.
No.
But sorry, I'm getting a little sidetracked. another, and I would like to hear your opinion on this one as an artist that you are. Some people arguing against the inclusion of an easy mode would say, increasingly, video games are a form of art, and someone or a team has like created this, and this is their vision, and it's entitlement for people to expect that piece of art to function in a way that they can enjoy it.
To function in a way that it was not intended to be
someone's made this.
Yeah.
This is their project. This is their art. This is something they've spent their life creating. This is their thing, and it's not up to me to be like, oh, I don't like how that plays. I want it to be in a way that I can consume it more easily. It's not mine. It's something somebody else has made as an artist, and it's a level of entitlement to think that I should be able to enjoy that in a particular way.
I can see that. I get that. But what about what happens when it comes down to players who, like you said, are physically unable to play?
Yeah, which is a very difficult situation.
I get that. If it comes down to the artist, the creators of the game, making it only for this group of people, but that's also them limiting their sales to that group of people, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, comparing like Dark Souls 1 going through to Elden Ring now, the games have become more accessible, not in terms of maybe physical disabilities, but in terms of just generally to the public. Like Elden Ring is a more mainstream game than maybe Dark Souls 1
and that is the newest
was released.
one.
Yeah. Like,
so it is, I guess, gradually becoming more and more.
I mean, just the fact that like Dark Souls 1, there's no tutorial. There's nothing that teaches. There's a few messages on the floor. I mean, Dark Souls 3, there was a few messages on the floor.
Yeah.
Elden Ring has like a whole like tutorial area that you can miss. You can like accidentally miss it or skip it if you don't want. But an area that's designed to teach you. So things like that, they're making the games easier for players, at least, who are able to play them. Anyway, just to finish up, then I wanted to ask you just two more questions. Number one, is Dark Souls hard?
Yes, to me, Dark Souls is hard.
Really? Okay.
Yes. What do you mean, really?
I don't know. I don't know if
Were you expecting me to say no?
Well,
what? Like it's hard?
I mean, you tried what, like, what was it, like 10?
I feel like
15 times in 5 hours. I think
in total, I probably died about like 20 times. The first video,
like
I didn't die at all.
And then about.
But the second video,
11,
I died like 11 times.
And then about 6 in the last one, so maybe like less than 20 times. But you would say it's hard. Okay. I wasn't sure if that would be okay.
Well, also, if I didn't have you
would get there eventually.
You'd
have to do some research, and it would be a different journey.
It would be very different, and it would be. I mean, yes, I think Dark Souls is hard.
Okay. And then the last thing I wanted to ask you is, if someone was listening to this or watching this, who likes the look of Dark Souls and has seen videos or thinks the games look really interesting, but are worried that it isn't for them, that it is too difficult, they wouldn't be able to get past the first boss, what would you say?
I'd say just try it. Just give it a try. I mean, if you think Dark Souls doesn't look like a game for you, don't bother.
Wait, you think it doesn't look like a game for you?
Yeah, if you think Dark Souls looks like a game that you wouldn't enjoy.
No. This is for people who do. People who are who've looked at videos and be like, that kind of looks fun. It looks like,
but it looks too hard.
The world looks so beautiful. I want to like understand the lore and like.
I'm sorry.
They're really well reviewed games. You know, the games are like good games. Like, I want to try them, but I'm worried like I'm not good enough. What would you say?
I'd say, I mean, don't knock it till you try it, I guess. Like, if you think it looks like a fun game, even though it looks difficult, give it a try. If I could beat Gundyr on my first try, you can beat Gundyr on your first try.
I don't know about
Let's be honest.
But fair enough. Okay. Any final messages from you?
If you enjoy this video, please watch all of the rest of our videos. We have quite a few on our channel. We really enjoy making these. We are a new channel, and we would really appreciate any and all support and engagement you can offer. So please subscribe, please like and comment on this video.
Absolutely. I think generally as a small channel, every single
everything counts,
really is counting at this stage. Everything really helps. So yeah.
And I mean, if there's any games that you would like to see me play, to see Simon and I play together. If you want, like to see,
we've got a few on our list. I think Dark Souls. We play some more Dark Souls. For sure. And we've got some more videos next year.
I will. I think we should play more Dark Souls. If there's anything else you want to see us do, please comment below. Yeah, thank you so much for watching our video.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Bye.